Alright, so let's continue. So now we need to fix a few things on the link card component that we have over here. So let's start with the date. We need to format the date in order to make it look like this in such a way. So we will be displaying the date, the month, and the time. So there are many different ways in which we can format a date. The one that I usually prefer is by using a library which goes by the name of datefns. So it's a pretty simple library which provides a lot of different functions which can be used to play around with a date. So we will be using it in order to format the date. And for this we first need to install it, which is this package date-fns. As you can see, it's quite popular. So now let's head back to the project and we can create another terminal. So let's install the package by yarn add date-fns or npm install datefns. They both are the same. I think that yarn is pretty, like, it's a bit faster, but anyway, now that we have installed the library, we will be using a function out of it which goes by the name of format. So I'm quite rusty with the units that we have to pass in. Anyway, we will be using the function that I know of, the format. So this function takes two arguments. The first one is the date itself, and the other one is a string value using which we have to specify the format. So as you can see, the triple M, the uppercase M, they result in the month. So as we want to have something like this, date, month, and the hour and minute, so we have to look for the respective unit. Let's see. So I'm quite rusty as they may have changed the unit lately in the newer version. So for the day of the month, we have to use small case d. Okay, for the month we already know, we just saw that in the example. So we have the day, we have the month. Now we just need to look for the hour, which should be around here. Okay, there it is. We will be going with the second option as we need it in the 24-hour format. So we need to use double H uppercase, and for the minute it's double M in lowercase. Okay, so let's do that. Heading back to the link card component, we have already installed the library date-fns. Let's import the function. So we just need one function. Let's do this in such a way. Format datefns/format for the function. So now that we have it over here, we can remove this created at, and we're going to use the function. So as we know, the first argument is the date. So let's pass in the created at that is being passed down via props. And the other argument is the string where we need to specify the format. So for the date, it is small case d, then triple M uppercase for the month. And we need a comma between the date and the time. For the hour, it is double H uppercase, and for the minute, it is double M lowercase, something like this. Let's see if it works out over here. Let me just refresh. Okay, yep, that's working perfect. That's perfect. So we have formatted the date. Let's see what else do we need to do. So we need to add a bit of spacing. Then we have the name and the long URL together. So in such case, we can wrap these two inside of a box. Let's do that. Over here, we can write next to the created at, we can add in a box component, and we can wrap these two typography inside of it. And to this box, we can add some margin in the y-axis, top and bottom, of about 2. If we do that, we should be seeing some spacing, and that's looking perfect. So while we are at it, let's also specify the different variants on these typography. So for the first one, for the created at, as we are looking forward to have something like this, we can change the variant of typography to be, I guess, caption or overline. Okay, so we have something like overline. I haven't really used it. Let me just check variant overline. Let's see how does that turns out to be. Well, that's looking beautiful. This is the first time I'm using this variant, so that's perfect. 1 second. So the other thing is that for the name, I think it's perfect. We will be changing the font family in a short while once we create a custom theme. And well, let's do one thing. Let's actually create a theme right now, because I think we do require to add in the colors. So in order to create a theme, let's head back to the project, and within the source directory, we will be creating another file, a new one, which goes with the name of theme.js. So this will be the theme. Over here, we need to import a function from the material UI library, which allows us to create a theme. And the name of the function is create MUI theme, kind of descriptive. So this function, when invoked, returns back a theme. As you can see right over here, that it returns back a theme which can then be used in the application. So we will be passing in an object, and within this object we can override the default theme that we have over here. Like, we can override any of the theme configuration variable. The best part is that you do not have to provide value for each of these variables. You can just pinpoint the ones that you need to override. As in this case, we want to change the color. So for this, we will be using the palette theme configuration variable, which contain certain colors. So heading back over here, we need to override the palette. And for the primary color, we need to override this color. So the thing is that the primary, like all the different colors inside the palette, we cannot specify the color code right away. Like in this case, we need to have this color code, which is this thing. 1 second, you can pause the video and type in the same thing, this color code. So we cannot provide a color code to the primary color inside the palette. We have to provide a color object. So all the colors, they take in a color object as a value. And now you may think, what is a color object? So the library ships with different color objects, like out of the box, as we have over here. So a color object is an object which is comprised of different shades of color. As you can see, the library ships with different colors, as you can see right over here, and you can import any of these colors. Like for instance, if I want to import a color from the material UI library /colors over here, and over here if I press Ctrl plus space, it will provide all the available imports that we have. As you can see, it's going to show all the imports, and these all are the color objects. So we can go with any one of them, like for example cyan over here, and I can use it as a value to the primary color. If I do that, well, right now we are just creating the theme, we need to use it. So as we know that this function returns back a theme, we can just directly export default the return value, which means that this file, the theme.js, is currently returning back a theme which can be used. So now heading back to the root of our application, the top level where we have the entire application. In this case, it's going to be the app component. So over here, we need to import a component from the library, from the material UI library, which is the theme provider. Again, speak for itself. So the theme provider allows us to provide our own custom theme to the rest of the application. So we just need to wrap the entire thing, the entire application inside the theme provider. as such, and we also need to import the theme that we have just created to the theme provider via the theme prop as such. If we do that, the custom theme will be applied, and now if we take a look, we will see the color has been changed, which is perfect. So the reason why it happened is because we are overriding the primary color to be this color object, as you can see. And by default, these two components, the app bar and the button, they use primary color, and that's why we had that purple color earlier, because that's the default color that the library ships with. And now we have overridden that thing. Now the thing is that it's good that the library provides a bunch of different color objects which we can use, but in this case we are looking forward to have more of like a custom color, which is this one over here, which is a custom color code. So in order to use a custom color code as the color inside of our theme, we have to pass in an object. Now we have to construct our own color object, but the good thing is that the only shade that we need to provide within this object is the main shade. And we can set the value of it to be this color. So this color will be used as the color for primary, as you can see. So it's perfect. Now the other thing is that for the app bar component, we do not want to use this color. As you can see, we want to have this dark shade of blue. Now in your screen it may look like black as it is a dark shade of blue, but it's actually blue color. Anyway, now in order to change the color, if we head back to the the navbar component, and over here, well actually we can just check the documentation for the app bar component, the API of it right over here. We will see that it takes a color prop and we have few options that we can go with. So all these colors that you see, these are theme colors, which means that we cannot provide a custom color code for the color. So what we can do is we can override the secondary color within the palette in the same way as what we did for the primary, and we can set the value of the secondary to be this color object, this color value. So you can again pause the video and enter the same thing. So I will be copying the same color, setting it to be secondary, and changing the main shade to be this color value. So now within the navbar, on the app bar component, we can pass in color and set it to be secondary as such. If we do that, we should be seeing the dark blue color. So that's perfect. So as you can see, we have a bit of shadow, and we can remove that by removing the elevation. So if we take a look at the documentation, we won't find any prop which has to do anything with the box shadow. But you can keep it as a rule of thumb that whenever you see any component from the library, the material UI library, if that component has shadow, then it means that it has something to do with elevation, as that component is being elevated and thus it has a shadow. So in order to remove that, on the app bar component, we can pass in elevation and set the value to be 0. If we do that, the shadow should be removed. Perfect. So I think that's looking perfect. Let me just check the design. Okay. So now we need to fix a few things which relates to the button. So for the button that are being used over here within the navbar, and as well as on the over here, the bar that we added. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to change the text transform. We do not want the text to be in uppercase. And for this, what we can do is we will be using the default theme. We are going to override the value, and over here we will be finding the typography theme configuration variable. So this thing, it has everything to do with the typography, the text in our application. So within this typography, we will be finding the button, and over here we will see that it has a text transform of uppercase, and this is the reason why all the button in our application, like, they have the uppercase text. So let's change that. Within the theme, next to the palette, let's tap inside the typography and change the button, the text transform of it, to be capitalized as such. If we do that, well, that's looking much better. And this actually switched the way that these buttons work, so that's quite strange. Let's head back to the account component. We will not the account, it has to be inside the navbar. Over here, okay, so I made a typo. It's not it was not because of that, but I added some gibberish. Anyway, now that's looking perfect. We have everything in place. The other thing is that the color of this button, the text color, it's quite odd. It should be in white. So in order to fix this, one second, what we can do is, on the primary color object, there is a property with the name of contrast text, and this is actually the color of the text which goes inside of the component using this color. So I think this should work if we set it to be white in such a way. Let's see. Perfect, that's actually looking pretty nice. So I think that's it. Let's just remove the elevation on the button, for which over here within the navbar component, well, not navbar, my bad, it is in the account page. Over here on the button component, we can pass in disable elevation as such, and that's looking much better. So the last thing that we can do is we can just change the font family for the entire application. And for this, let me just check what font is being used. It's Poppins. We need to get the font first. We need to import the font. So fortunately it's a Google font, so it's quite simple. Let's head to the fonts.google.com, and over here let's search for Poppins. There is the font. So in this case we require just the regular. Well, we also require the medium. This one, is it medium? I think it's more of like bold. So instead of medium, let's just import semi-bold. I think that will look fine. And let's also import the medium. Well, yep. Let me just check the design. Well, we should only import 2 styles, as that's what is suggested. So let's just remove the medium and let's just import the regular and the semi-bold. So over here we have the link. Over here we can copy the entire thing, this thing, and let's head to the, should we import the entire thing? Just the last one. And let's head back to the index.html, and over here we can place in the link right at the top over here. So we are importing Poppins and the 2 weights, 400 and 600. So now that we are importing it, now that we have imported it, let's head to the theme and let's change the default font family. So within the typography, we can override the font family to be of Poppins, and let's use the sans serif as the fallback font. If we do that, we should be seeing the new font being used, as you can see. So that's perfect. So we need to change a few things. We need to make the text bold, this thing right over here, the typography. So for this, inside the account component, over here we are using the H4 variant for this text. So let's do one thing. Let's head back to the theme. Within the typography, we can target any variant as such by specifying the variant and opening the curly braces. So all the stylings that we apply over here, they will be added to all the typography components with a variant of H4. So we just need to change the font weight to be of 600 as such. If we do that, we should be seeing the change being reflected. So that's perfect. Now the other thing is, for the button, we can do the same thing. We can increase the font weight, and for that, inside the button, let's do the same thing. We can in fact copy the same thing and add it over here, and I think that's looking much better. It's actually way too much, but let's just keep it the way that it is for now. So let's continue and getting back to the link card component. So over here, let's see the design. We need to change the color of this typography, as it has to be a little gray in color. So for this, on the link card component, on the first typography for the created art, we can pass in the color, and for this we have quite a few options. The text primary is actually the default color that all the typography component use. So in this case, we will be setting it to be of text secondary, as I know that this color by default, it's kind of gray. It has a gray shade. So if we do that, let's see, and that's looking perfect. So that's it. Let's just align these two in the same axis, and let's add a bit of spacing. So for this, over here, we are setting the box component, the one which is wrapping these two, to have the display of flex. Let's add in the align items to be of center, and in order to add the spacing between them, we can wrap them, like either one of them, inside of a box, and we can add some margin to the right of about 3. Let's see, perfect. Now let's also change the color of them. As you can see, we need to have something like this, and for this it's quite simple. On the typography, we just need to pass in the color, and we can change it to be of primary as such, as we have already overridden this color inside of our theme. Perfect. Let's do the same thing on the button component. Let's pass in color and set it to be of primary as well. Perfect. So that is looking perfect. Great. For the other half that we have over here, we need to align them in the center, as what we have over here, and we need to change the color. Well, for the icon color, I think using black is fine. Let's just change the color and the variant of the text, the total clicks. Let's do that. Over here on the other box component, right inside of it, the most, like the internal one, which is wrapping these two. Well, actually not on this one, on the one which is wrapping the entire thing, this entire thing, this thing. So for this, we can, should we do, yeah, we can actually change the text align to be of center, because I believe like it should work. It didn't. Okay, that's surprising. So okay, so what we can do is, on the box component which has the display of flex, in the main axis, using the justify content, we can set it to be center. Perfect. And for the typography, we can change the variant to be the same overline that we used earlier. So that is looking beautiful. Overline is my next favorite variant. Okay, so that is looking perfect. Yep, things are getting into shape. It's far better than I expected, to be honest. This being my first video. Anyway, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. It's way too long, like, to redo the entire video, so I'm just gonna ignore that part. Anyway, now let's do one thing. Let's create another link just to see how it turns out to be. So over here within the account screen component, I will be copying this object one more time, making sure that I change the ID, keeping the rest of the things the same. Let me just change the name to be ebook, something like this, drive.google, something random. For the short code, doesn't matter. And for the total clicks, it can be something, not 31, 32. Let's see. So we should be seeing 2 links, and there we have it. So that is beautiful. We just need to add the divider between them. So for this, what we can do is over here where we are mapping over the array. So let's just import the divider component from the library, and right over here we can add in the divider. Now divider is used as a self-closing component, and as we cannot add 2 components in the same level, what we can do is we can wrap them inside of fragments in such a way. But the thing is that we also need to pass in the key. So we would have to import the fragment itself, the actual component. We cannot add key in such a format. So we have to add in the fragment, and we can shift the key. We can shift the key to the fragment as such. If we do that, now we should be seeing the divider, and that is looking perfect. We can just add a bit of spacing. For that, we can wrap the divider inside of a box, and we can add some margin in the Y of about 2. If we do that, perfect. Let me just increase it to be 4, and that's looking much better. Now obviously we do not want to add divider to the very last link card, and for that, over here where we are mapping, we can get the index, and this box itself, we can wrap it inside of an expression, and we can check that if the index is equals to the links array, the one that we are currently mapping over, the length of it. If this is the case, so if this is 1, the length is second. If this is 1, then the length is 2. So I think we may have to -1, and then adding the double ampersand in such a way. So we are just checking that if this is the last element, and it actually did the opposite. Maybe just the length. Let's see. it didn't work at all. So we are checking if the index, which will be 0, 1, and we want to remove it for the 1. Sometimes simpler things they take more time than the complicated ones. So if this is 1, then the links.length is going to be 2 in this case, and we just want to remove 1. It should work. Why isn't it working? Okay, 1 second. If this is not the case, I think I kind of made the mistake. So if index is not the last one, only then we want to display the box. Okay, got it. So yep, things are perfect. Let me just add another real quick, just to check the divider thing. Okay, perfect. Alright, so this completes the part which involves the UI and all. I actually focused too much on the UI part, but as we are using Firebase, Firestore, it's more of plug and play kind of thing. We still would have to add some sort of we would have to structure the entire application, but the best part is when you're using a platform as a service like Firebase, you do not have to do much on the backend part. And that being said, now that we have this application, we can actually start with the Firebase, where we first would have to work on the login part on the home page, and then we can work on the internal page. So let's do that.